Here's a quiz that only true 80s and 90s kids should be able to ace. There are 50 questions. Let me know at the end how many you remembered correctly. Let's get started. What were the yellow pages used for? It was used to find local businesses and their phone numbers. What does it mean to burn a CD? It meant to copy music or data onto a blank CD. When did kids know it was time to go home? That's right, when the street lights came on. Why did kids wake up early on Saturdays in the 80s and 90s? It was to watch Saturday morning cartoons. What was the purpose of a pencil when using a cassette tape? You use the pencil to rewind or tighten the tape manually. What does it mean to make a collect call? It's a phone call where the person you're calling pays for it. What did you have to blow into to get it working again? The answer is a Nintendo cartridge. What did you have to do before returning a VHS tape to the rental store? You had to rewind it. Be kind, rewind. What sound did ICQ make when you got a message? It would go, uh-oh, uh-oh. What was the name of the digital pet you had to feed and clean up after? That's right, they were called Tamagotchi pets. What did you give your friends to show you had the best taste in music? You would make them a mixtape or a mix CD. What would happen if you picked up the phone while someone was on dial-up internet? It would disconnect the internet. What device would you use to record your favorite songs off the radio? That's right, you would have used a cassette tape recorder. Which 90s rap duo famously wore their clothes backwards as part of their act? The correct answer is, of course, Crisscross. What did kids put on their bike wheels to make it sound like a motorcycle? They would clip playing cards or baseball cards to the spokes. What would you hear when you logged into AOL in the 90s? You would hear, "You've got mail."
You've got mail.
What did you use to play in a Walkman? Yeah, the answer is a cassette tape. How did people check movie times before smartphones and apps? They would have called the theater or checked the local newspaper. According to Bon Jovi, where did Tommy used to work? Correct. He used to work on the docks.
Tommy used to work on the docks.
What was the name of the catalog where you'd circle toys before Christmas? It was the Sears Wish Book. What did teachers roll into classrooms on special days that got kids excited? They would roll in a big TV on a cart. What did you need to connect to the internet in the 90s? You needed a dial-up modem. What code did you dial before making a prank call to block your number? You would dial *67. What did you use to skip to your favorite song on a cassette tape? You had to fast forward the tape and guess when to stop. What was the biggest problem with compact disc players in the 90s? They would skip if you bumped them or moved them too much. What device had a ball you had to clean when the cursor stopped working? That was a computer mouse. What did you slap on your wrist and it would curl around? The correct answer is a slap bracelet. What did you do if your TV remote control didn't work? You would smack it or roll the batteries around. What show featured a character named Steve Urkel? The correct answer is Family Matters. What was the purpose of dialing *69 on a landline phone in the 90s? You use it to call back the last number that called you. What 90s website let anyone build their own page with glitter, music, and wild colors? That was GeoCities. Did you ever use it to make a web page? What was the name of the Microsoft Assistant shaped like a paperclip? That was Clippy. What did you do to save your computer work before USB drives existed? You had to save it on a floppy disk. What was the name of the toy that walked downstairs using its own springy motion? Of course, yeah, it's a Slinky. What was the worst part about getting film developed? The worst part was waiting days to see if any of the photos turned out. What was the name of the TV channel that played music videos 24/7? The answer is MTV. I wish they would go back to that. What glowing ceiling stickers did kids use to decorate their rooms? They would put glow-in-the-dark stars on their ceilings. What do the Spice Girls want you to do if you want to be my lover? That's right, you gotta get with my friends. Before GPS on phones, what website did people use to print driving directions? The correct answer, of course, is MapQuest. What program let people share and download music online before streaming existed? The most popular by far was Napster. What was the name of the talking teddy bear that played cassette tapes? That was a Teddy Ruxpin doll. What was the phone number you had to memorize to reach Jenny in the 80s hit song? The phone number was 867-5309. What was the worst part about going down a slide in the summer? The slides were metal and you would burn your legs. What handheld toy let you record your voice and play it back with sound effects? That was called the Yak Back. What happened if you called a friend's house and they weren't home and there was no answering machine? Yeah, the phone just rang and rang forever. What was the most frustrating part about using a paper map on a road trip? Definitely trying to fold it back up correctly. What would you do to fix a skipping CD or DVD? You would try wiping it on your shirt or blowing on it. What color was Michael Jackson's famous jacket in the Thriller music video? It was red. What was the worst part about loading a single image on dial-up internet? The image took forever to load, one slow line at a time. Why would kids race to be the first one to open a new box of cereal? It was to be the one to get the prize inside. Let me know in the comments how many questions you got right, and give this video a thumbs up if you missed those days. Thank you so much for playing.